With all this in mind, Churchill and an inner coterie took the decision to form a secret army of saboteurs called Auxiliary units, who would be the nucleus of a resistance movement should the invasion happen. With many able-bodied men already recruited to the regular army, the force was secretly gathered from the fitter, younger members of the Home Guard, such as Ivan Potter, who in 1940 was just 17.
I was as keen as mustard, weren't I? Because to me, especially going amongst some of the gentlemen who had been in the 14-18 war wearing military medals and the officer with a military cross and whatnot, I mean, you looked up to them like, absolutely, in those days you said yes sir, no sir to the farmer, didn't you? Because that was the way you respected them.
This force was to be hidden in a series of underground bunkers that were specially constructed across the south and east coast of England. There were around 60 bunkers per county, each housing a 3 to 6 man team.
This is a typical replicated entrance and exit to and from an operational base, as used by the auxiliary units of World War II from the end of 1940 onwards. The entrance was a balanced trapdoor which contained 6 inches of earth, and the weeds in it were allowed to, and indeed encouraged to, proliferate, so that it helped to camouflage the trapdoor when it was eased down into position by a carefully contrived balancing mechanism.
After I'd been in about a month, they said that they were forming mobile squads, and they wanted all younger men to form these mobile squads, small units of between 6 and 8 men, as far as we were concerned, to be mobile squads to liaise and assist between the sections that were fighting.
So now, having come down the entrance shaft, we've now entered the main chamber, which was where 6 auxiliary units, operational patrollers, were intended to stay during the duration of their active service behind enemy lines. And I think it's important at this stage to point out that there is virtually nothing about this in the National Archives of any kind or emerging to us from official sources. So the information that we have has come from survivors in the main and from some papers that we've discovered. But we do know that the main chamber here, comprising elephant iron, was very strong indeed and very durable and rust resistant. The idea was that the sappers came in and dug a deep hole at the bottom of which was a floor creation either of concrete or usually of railway sleepers. On top of that could be positioned this ready-made slab section of elephant iron bolted together and an instant cover created. It then required a wall at one end to lead to an escape tunnel, and it needed a wall at this end where the shaft came down. Most of the hideaways, shall we call them, during the war were constructed as this one was being, but a number were utilised from existing suitable underground locations. For example, in Scotland there were caves which could be adapted. In Northumberland there were coal mines, old coal mines, which could be adapted. And in Devon and Cornwall there were the tin and copper mines which could be adapted.
They became Churchill's secret army, and as they made them up, we knew that they were building bunkers around for us to be in, and then we had an officer come and instruct us on all various items of what to do, and he said, right, from now on, he says, nobody is to know anything about you outside your own unit. You will be called a mobile squad, but as far as the government is concerned, you will be just saboteurs should the enemy land, and should you hear the bells ring, which was the call for the invasion, you are to go immediately underground and not come out until the Germans have overrun the place. So once you're overrun, you will be saboteurs behind enemy lines, so to speak.
They were first put into operation after authority to create an entirely illegal organisation of saboteurs made of civilians. It had not one bit of legal backing for this decision, and this decision had to be made and the funds provided with the authority of the Inner War Cabinet led by Winston Churchill. And the men to fight for their country below ground in this particular location from these operational bases only expected to have a very short life expectancy. Either they would be relieved by counterattack within, say, a fortnight, or they would be captured and undoubtedly executed as francs-tireurs with no rights as prisoners of war or protection under the Geneva Convention.
We had a captain come and teach us how to make these landmines out of biscuit tins, and the use of all types of explosives and all the various unarmed combats and things like that. And he taught us to stand absolutely dead still, quiet, gone. Completely like that. And I can do that for 10 minutes even now. I can stay dead still, not blink or think or move or breathe, because I can breathe and you won't even hear me breathing. We used to do exercises, and we went to do a recce on one of the searchlight units at Bentley in the next village, and we were crawling along through the various places, and while I was laying in the ditch, I got peed on by a sentry. Absolutely. I mean, and that was the biggest laugh in our section to the other 10 members. Yeah, because you could lay down and you laid and you didn't make a movement.
Once the balloon went up, as the men knew it, and the enemy had arrived and then passed over these operational bases, the men would have been literally entombed below as the enemy passed through. For this purpose, the operational bases that we've discovered to accommodate at any one stage about 3,600 men, with roughly 6 in each, so we're talking in the areas of the country vulnerable to invasion of some 600 of operational bases of this type, not always the same, but of this type. Then the men would have been required to prepare themselves by day to attack a target by night. They were expected, because of their special training and special skills in local knowledge, to be able to operate silently and secretly in their own locality, carry out an operation each night against the enemy, which essentially would be using explosives to blow up his supplies and his reserves and his tanks and his aircraft, and then return hopefully to the safety of this operational base by day. During day they would rest, they would review their explosives and their firearms, they would make a decision on which target to attack that night, and then were prepared to go out once night had fallen. And the auxiliaries themselves were not in any doubt that this was a do-or-die mission.
Most of the auxiliary units' hides were supposed to have been destroyed at the end of the war, and they certainly weren't designed to last 10s or 20s or 30s of years, but quite a lot of them have survived. Sussex has quite a good survival rate, and I've visited many of the auxiliary hides in Sussex, and 3 or 4 of them still exist in a fairly good state of preservation, with wooden bunks, with basic furniture, ventilation, and often a tin-lined shaft that you can just about get into. I can remember one I went into where the sides had been pushed in, and I'm a little bit of a porky person, and I got absolutely stuck trying to get into the auxiliary hide. I made the mistake of going on my own without telling anyone I was there, and I was stuck in that shaft for 5 hours before someone came along and hauled me out. Quite a frightening experience, I can tell you.